you for coming to our farm. You know, 4 years ago, a few of you were also here at this place at almost the same time, and we were fighting for our country. And I was honored to have our now First Lady here, Mrs. Joe Biden. But today, I am truly honored to have this gentleman. You know, they gave me talking points for this introduction.
You're like me.
I told them I'm better if I just go off script. They got nervous. They said, send it to us.
That's because they've been around me.
But I was given some advice one time. I said, speak the truth and speak from the heart. So what you hear, I won't remember what I said. But I had some comments. I had some thoughts about what to say to Governor Walz. But after spending time with him back here in that barn, what this guy stands for is what every individual in this country, regardless of party, should be proud to call my vice president. Just like my brothers, my dad, my uncle, and myself, we grew up working on his family farm. And he shares his experiences, the ones we did as kids, throwing hay bales, driving tractors. So, hey, this guy understands what it is to live in a small town. He understands what it means to sit at that kitchen table and talk about the issues that affect our families. And this administration that we are going to put in here is going to make life better for all of us. And I was also told I had 2 minutes and they would pull the plug on the mic.
They will not.
And I told the young lady, I said, did you ever see Jimmy V, the speech?
Yes.
But anyways, the shortest speech I ever gave was for my parents' anniversary. And it was just one word, thank you. And with that, I'd just like to say, I'd like to introduce to me probably one of the most important people in our lives. And the reason I did this, opened our farm up for this, is it had nothing to do with me. It was because, like every one of you that have kids and grandkids, we fear for their future. We fight for their future. And we're going to win for their future.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Governor.
You're the best. Wow. Well, thank you, Rick. I told him, I said, dang, I'm glad this is an IH farm since I'm always talking about my international. So, it's interesting when you talk to somebody like Rick and you ask them what they grow. Corn, soybeans, family, kids, community. Family farms are what a lot of folks want to talk about it. Some folks live it on what it means. So, Rick, to you and your family, thank you. I know in today's world, opening up your farm and having folks come on here, as you said, you'll probably get less than a 5-finger wave sometimes. That happens. But look, this is about trying to figure out how do we bring this country back together, and there's no better place than being on a third-generation family farm to talk about this great country. So thank you. Been in his family since 1949. He said he started out with 40 dairy cows, still a family operation. And I have to tell you, thanks to all of you for coming out and standing on this land. It matters. And he mentioned the sun came out. He said, is it true that you guys control the weather? And my answer to that is if it was, it wouldn't be 40 below in Minnesota in January. So what you gets there. But look, we got a lot of things on the mind here. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to get to know a lot of folks here in Pennsylvania and see the commonality that we have together. I'm just going to ask you all, on behalf of the rest of the country, please send Bob Casey back to the Senate if you can. Please do that. I traveled with Senator Casey. They took me along on a Senate Foreign Relations trip over to the Middle East, and I'll tell you, just the respect he has, the understanding of the issues, the way he carries himself, and he's just a good guy. And so get him back in there. And then, and the thing you get to know is as governors. Governor Whitmer said this yesterday. The thing about governors, they just have to get shit done. That's what you do. your governor here knows something about that in Governor Shapiro. He taught all of us that we can do a lot better building bridges if we put our mind to it. And you can get them up in a hurry and you can get people back to work. We watched that happen, and so I'm really grateful for that. Look, family farms, we share a proud tradition, history of feeding and fueling this country. Rural neighbors, foundational to America's success. And I promise you this, Vice President Harris and I, when we win this election, we will have rural America's back just like they've had our back. So I talked to the Vice President about this, understanding what rural community needs. In the Senate, she was there and she represented. This is what people forget. We all talk about our agricultural roots. The largest agricultural state in the country is California. And as a senator from California, she understood that. She secured $20 billion to help hundreds of thousands of family farms and ranchers promote sustainable agriculture, increase resilience against extreme weather. We were just talking about this. We need to be ready for this. We moved from drought to flooding within years now. They keep telling us about 1,000-year floods. Many of us have seen 1,000-year floods in our lifetime now. That's the things that she's working on. So I'm really proud to be her running mate in this. And look, you've heard me say this. I grew up in rural Nebraska. And this rural folks know this. This is a game we play. How small was your town that you grew up in? 400 people. Somebody say, oh, that's not bad. A little smaller. 24 kids in my class. And then they say, oh, that's not bad. Many of them were cousins. So that's when you get really small. But look, that's how it is. You grew up understanding that. You grew up in communities that you helped one another. This new phenomenon of being each other's throats and talking about politics all the time, that's not what we did. We helped one another. You got through. And when somebody was sick, the families were there to help them, delivering food or helping with the farms, whatever it might be. So look, I learned a lot of things on those family farms, learned about what responsibility looks like. We were talking about this. We also learned to drive when we were 10, and that's probably probably not what you did. I learned how to tune a 79 International Harvester Scout pretty well that's still running, been in my family for a while. So look, my warmest and some of the things that I remember most about those memories of growing up was being on the land and understanding what it meant. And I'll have to tell you, this is one of those things too. Growing up with my dad and my late younger brother, just this last weekend in Minnesota was the opening of pheasant season. And some of you, if you never hunt pheasants, I'm telling you, you need to get into this. It's early in the morning. A lot of times there's frost. It was warm this year, but I can still remember it like it was yesterday. Coffee's brewing. My dad, my brother, and I, you're going out there. The dogs are in the field. You're on the land that's been in your family for a long time, and you're getting to participate in something that we all love so much, being with family, being on that land, and hunting. So look, these are the things that I do and the things I did last weekend that are part of who we are. And when Kamala Harris is talking to rural America, that's the things that we're talking about. And I have to tell you, they let me last weekend on Friday night go back to my old high school where I coached football to go to a football game. And they let me Saturday morning hunt. I have not been happier in the last 3 months than I was then. So came in pretty handy. But I say this too about this, because I want to be clear how they try and divide us on this. Just be very clear. As a veteran and as a hunter and a gun owner, I do know something about guns. I know a little bit about them. And I tell people this. I was out shooting sporting clays with a guy who was like a fixture in Minnesota of outdoor life, whatever. And I'm watching these clays go up, and I'm like, damn, they kind of cross together. And I said, well, I don't need 2 shots. I can get them in 1. And I got it with plenty of witnesses. So I took that to Congress too, and it's hard to believe that maybe they still don't do it. I don't know. I left Congress a few years ago. But we used to have a congressional trap shoot Democrats versus Republicans, not each other. We can shoot each other. So I have to be careful about the shotgun jokes as running for vice president. I think many of you know. But we'd go out there, and it was camaraderie, and we would shoot. And year after year, I would end up out shooting the vast majority of them. I said, I got the trophies to prove it. Look, this is not about this idea. Kamala Harris, she's a gun owner too. I think this is true. I think this might be the first Democratic ticket where both the president and the vice president are gun owners this time. So that's something. Yeah, it's something. And I say this to you because we're not going to allow them to make this about the Second Amendment. We certainly believe in the Second Amendment, and you're right to own this. But our first responsibility is to make sure we're protecting our children and our communities from gun violence. So That is not a hard concept. So when the vice president is talking about things like, well, we'll see this, this idea about background checks. Vice President, I can pass them. On the other side of the ticket, you know the 34 felonies? You can't pass a background check. So look, don't let your neighbors, and let's not allow this to happen to divide us. This is not the issues they want it to be. We will protect. Nobody's coming for your guns. But we are going to make sure that your kids can go to school without being shot dead in their classroom. That's what we can do. Well, look, we've got a responsibility to work for the common good. The job should not be to try and divide us. And the perspective I brought with me to Congress was I represented a rural district for 12 years where I worked across the aisle and was responsible for helping write 3 farm bills, expanding support for farmers and ranchers, expanding veterans' access to crop insurance and job training. That's what we did. Today, I lead a state that is one of the largest agricultural powerhouses in the country. Just so you know, I tell people this, corn, soybeans, everything else. But as we're getting ready to approach Thanksgiving, we are the #1 turkey producing state in the country, and we're very proud of that. So we produce, dairy, pork, and turkeys. Those are the 3 food groups in Minnesota. So I've got a 20-something daughter who I'm trying to say, you know, this vegetarian thing is a phase, so move back, or whatever. You come to our state fair, though, go over to Farmers Union booth, and you'll get some of the best, most innovative food, locally grown and produced right in Minnesota. And the same thing happens here in Pennsylvania. That's what family farms mean. That's what means coming together and growing together. And in Minnesota, able to enact tax credits and loan programs for equipment, making sure that we were doing down payment assistance to folks, because we all know if you want to get into farming, access to capital is the biggest thing. Vice President Harris knows that. She knows that our rural neighbors, that look, when things are hard and difficult, that's when we do it the best. And we owe them our full support to make sure that they can find an opportunity right now in their hometowns. This idea that you got to get bigger or get out is nonsense. It is nonsense. We can continue to make sure we invest in rural communities, invest in family farms to make a difference. So look, I also want you to know, because you've seen this, doing this work, many of you here know this, been a lot of talk about outsiders coming into rural communities, stealing our jobs, making life worse for the people who are living there. Those outsiders have names. They're Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. No one was asking for what they were bringing, but they brought it to their very states they represent and told lies about the people living in these communities. People who were simply trying to do an honest day's work, maybe buy some nice clothes for their kids so they could go to Mass on Sunday. That's what a lot of these folks were asking. They weren't asking anything else, and they weren't doing anything else until these guys come along and tell us that. And the reason is they don't respect rural communities. And I'll tell you what, they take a hell of a lot of their voters for granted by the policies they put out that don't do a damn thing for rural Pennsylvania or rural Minnesota or any place in this country. That's what the obvious is. Now, I appreciate folks who did this, and I am proud where I grew up. I wouldn't trade that for anything. And Senator Vance, he became a media darling. He wrote a book about the place he grew up, but the premise was trashing that place where he grew up rather than lifting it up. This guy's a venture capitalist cosplaying like he's a cowboy or something. I don't even know what a venture capitalist does most of the time, because folks who go to work every day, they're the ones that are saying, what are you going to do with the policies to make my life a little better? These guys see your communities as commodities to trade and move around. They see your house as something to buy up and sell to make a profit on. They don't see it as a place where you raise your kids. This guy's, JD's still got an app, lets users, foreign investors, corporations, speculate on short-term investments in farmland, trying to squeeze every dollar out of soil that they'll never work or never step foot in. That's not right. That makes it difficult for your kids to buy the land. That's why an acre of land costs $10,000 and it's impossible for young people to get in, because these guys are speculating on it with no intention of ever farming that land or doing a damn thing with us. That's the policies that we have to push back on. Look, our economy's getting better, prices are coming down, But Trump's mismanagement of COVID destroyed our supply chains, and farmers are still digging out of that hole from that and his damn tariffs that he put on. It didn't do a damn thing for rural America. Now, Rick and I were having this conversation about prices, and folks out here know this. Corn was, I think, trading today $4.10, $4.08 a bushel. Soybeans right under $10 a bushel. Look, that's not even enough to break even. But what the people out there, and Donald Trump shows up and tells them that prices are higher, well, you were making $4.10 for corn and $10 for soybeans when prices were 25% lower at the grocery store. Where the hell is the money going? Who's making the profit? It's not going into rural America. It's not going into the people who farm the land or process the food. Who's making the money? Who's making the money in the middle? And that's the stuff that we're talking about. When you hear this idea about price gouging, it's not that hard to understand. All of a sudden, there's a hurricane coming to Florida. I'll be damned if airline prices didn't shoot way up for folks trying to fly out of Florida. That's not capitalism, that's price gouging, and it's simply unethical. Those are the things we're talking about to make prices more affordable. So I did see this. Donald Trump wandered into a grocery store here a while ago. I'll have to tell you this. Yeah. You know he hasn't been in one since 1985. I keep making this case. I keep trying to say these things. You know, Kamala worked in a McDonald's. I said, can you picture that guy running the McFlurry machine? But he walks into this grocery store and he hands a $100 bill to a lady to pay for his groceries. Did you see this? So I'm like thinking, I wonder what he's doing there. And then I got to thinking, I think it's just natural. Any woman he sees, he pays off because he did something on there. I don't know. But this is the one that caught my eye. I know I shouldn't be, yes, I am not going to be generous at times because the pain that Donald Trump has brought, and I think we know what 4 more years would look like. But this one really got me going. He was talking about groceries, and he started rambling about groceries. I don't know if some of you saw. I'm going to give this one. Here's what he said. I had to put this on here so I don't misquote it. I have more complaints on grocery. The word grocery, you know, it's sort of a simple word, but it sort of means like everything you eat. The stomach is speaking. It always does. Now, I don't know if you saw last night, we were having a town hall and he got asked about health care and child care and didn't answer those. And then he spent 30 minutes standing on stage listening to music in front of this. So I'm going to be the first to say this. It is pretty funny stuff if he didn't want to be president of the United States. It's pretty funny stuff if he weren't going to try and deny women their reproductive rights. It's pretty funny stuff if he wasn't going to try and rip health care away from all of us with the ACA, or if he wasn't threatening us in different ways. So look, here in Pennsylvania, I know you know this, this idea about, well, it was better under Donald Trump. For God's sakes, our neighbors were dying by tens of thousands because this guy's telling us to inject bleach and not dealing with COVID. As a governor, I was part of this. We were in Hunger Games with other governors just to get basic things in healthcare to take care of our people. Here in Pennsylvania, he lost 275,000 jobs during the Trump years. That's just factual. These are just dates. And tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, promises to terminate it if he gets elected. Stripping protections, pre-existing conditions, devastating rural hospitals. You know the whole thing that he did. He tried to cut grants for rural communities affected by natural disasters. Now, these are things in his budget. Damage from things like we're seeing in storms and drought and flooding and hurricanes. Donald Trump thought it was a good idea to cut those things. And by the way, you've got representatives of folks living in Florida, when they had the chance to vote for FEMA funding or for disaster assistance, they voted against it. They voted against it. They sure the hell voted for tax cuts for the wealthiest, but they voted against disaster assistance. So look, Donald Trump did it all, starting trade wars with China that his own people said he lost. You know he did. Trump's own Secretary of Agriculture, and Rick and I just talked about this, he had a clear message of how farmers would fare under the leadership of Donald Trump. He said this simply. He was asked by a bunch of farmers, what do we need to do? He said, I'll tell you what, the big are going to get bigger and the little are going to get out. And that's exactly what happened. So instead of being able to milk 120 head, creating 3 or 4 jobs in this community, spending money in the local community and growing this area, Now you have folks milking 10,000 head in consolidated areas that have no impact on the local economy. That's what's happened under Donald Trump. So look, Trump had a near record farm bankruptcies in 2019 of folks going out of business because of that. So look, Donald Trump might be able to afford to go bankrupt once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. But farmers get to do it once. And then the farm's gone for the next generation. And then the community's lost another family. And sure enough, the businesses downtown start to close. So if you want to know what's happening to rural America, as I said, the folks coming in here and taking the jobs and destroying the area, they've got names. They've got names. Trump and Vance right now happen to be those, and the folks who back them. The venture capitalists who don't give one damn about walking this land, but are more than happy to take the profit off it. So look, we owe you something here. We owe you something. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, farm bankruptcies are down to a record low this year. And since she took office, Pennsylvania has created more than 500,000 jobs. If Trump returns to power, his Trump sales tax costs rural families nearly $4,000 a year. Cut Social Security, cut Medicare, gut the Affordable Care Act, give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. That's it, folks. When you want to talk to your neighbors about what this election is about, I don't know, I don't really like Donald Trump, but I like his policies. Which ones? Which ones are those? But look, that's not enough. We can complain about him, which I do, and I'm tired of it. I got to tell you that. I'm tired of complaining about this guy. I am tired about it. I just want to wake up and not see him on TV and not see this stuff out there. And we owe it to the American people to tell you not just why we don't want that guy, and God help us, there's numerous reasons, but why Kamala Harris is the right choice for us, that we need to lay out the policies. So I want to tell you here, and lose this, we've got a plan for rural America that's specific on this. You keep asking us, what's your plan? What's your plan on these things? Well, we've got a plan, whether it be rebuilding housing, whether it be price gouging, whether it be a tax cut on child tax credit. But for rural America, here's what we want to do. And those folks out here who know this, it's especially those things, because when people think rural America, farm policy matters, crop insurance matters, trade matters, tariff matters. But you're bigger than that. These are families. Your health care matters, your education matters, your roads matter, your retirement matters. All those things matter. So here's the plan. We're going to recruit 10,000 rural healthcare professionals. Cut the number. This is a term that none of us knew before. Ambulance deserts. There's large places in America right now, if you dial 911, it's very difficult to get to an ambulance right on time. Our EMTs are in short supply. We want to make sure that we're cutting that in half, expanding telemedicine and access to affordable quality healthcare for everyone in every part of the country. Now, this is another one you've seen. Making sure that we're protecting independent pharmacies can stay open and build 3,000 more so rural communities can have access to medications they need. Consolidation between pharmacy benefit managers and the closing of small independent rural pharmacies not only took jobs from small communities, they made it more difficult for you to access the medicines you need at affordable prices. And we'll make sure buying a home becomes more affordable. This is foundational to everyone. The rest of you out here, and some of you look like me if you're in this, the sandwich generation that we're talking about. Those of us out there who have a nearly 90-year-old mother, and as of Sunday, I'm proud to say, an 18-year-old son who, he said, "Dad, you've almost secured my vote. You're still working on it." So he's guarding that vote. He's out there doing it. But look, what we understand is you're concerned about how do we make childcare more affordable? How do we make pathways like internships and apprenticeship programs in college more affordable? And then at the same time, how do we take care of our seniors? And for the folks here, get this, especially in rural America where we're aging, the proposal that Kamala Harris put forward on Medicare is transformational. The ability to care for our loved ones through Medicare with in-home care is transformational. My mom's not leaving that house. She's still in that house. She's not leaving that house. And then expanding Medicare. Look, those of you who aren't this, I see some young folks here. Wait till you turn 60. You start caring a lot about Medicare. So you start, those out here know. I think a lot of people didn't know, and what Vice President Harris is putting forward is under our administration, not only will we expand that home health care, we'll expand it to hearing and vision as part of Medicare. That's really important. And these are real things in people's life. The nonsense that Donald Trump is talking about, Hannibal Lecter and sharks and batteries and dancing and whatever, that's not real. What's real is a few years ago when my mom finally got the hearing aid she needed, she's a lot more fun right now, I'll tell you that, because we were always telling her, and I think these are real life things for people. And then for so many of you, and I see our young people, wanting to start your own business, wanting to be your own boss. Man, that is the American dream. That is it. Each of us, people who choose to do that are risk takers, they're entrepreneurs, they are the American spirit. And we've been frozen at this, things like the red tape that makes it difficult to do it, or the inability to get tax breaks. Why can the biggest corporations get tax breaks to expand, and a small business owner gets a $5,000 tax credit? Kamala Harris said, we will move that to $50,000, making it easier to start your small business, creating more jobs. And making sure, and I see them here as we talk on this farm, because I'm deeply concerned about this. The average age of a farmer in this country is about 58 or 59 years old. That's because it's difficult to get that into the next generation. We need to make sure that next generation of farmers is ready to thrive. Helping those beginning farmers and ranchers get started, new market, new streams of income, making sure agricultural monopolies aren't here to pull that land out from under these folks so that they can grow right here. Think about this. I was with a farmer and you know, he said, look, Tim, I'm conservative, but I got to tell you, these policies are helping me. And he was talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, and he was talking about the infrastructure law. Because he says, on my farm, I grow corn, revenue from soybeans, and revenue from wind that he puts out there. He farms wind, is the way he sees it now, with energy being out there, opening up new opportunities for rural America to take part in this. We're going to have to use all of our energy resources going forward, but we need to make sure that rural America gets to take part in that it's not just coming in and pulling the profits off the land and leaving. We've got golden opportunities. So this is a plan to rejuvenate rural America, focusing on rural America, making sure those very issues that you're actually concerned about at your kitchen table are being addressed. So it's a good plan, and I'm damn proud of it. We need to talk about this. We need to go out to people and say, what do you stand for? Because right now, I don't know, Donald Trump's dancing to YMCA. I think I'll vote for him. Hell no. Hell no. Kamala Harris is out there putting a plan to make sure that wealth stays in communities. New farmers get on the land, that we open trade routes for folks, that we're keeping health care, that we're keeping rural access hospitals open. So look, Rick said, well, they don't want me to talk off the cuff. Neither does my team, because they know what that means. But look, I think like him, we grew up, we just tell it like it is. And just talk to people about what it is. And I did say this, and I was wrong. I said, they don't have a plan. Donald Trump doesn't have a plan. He said he had a concept of a plan, but he didn't have a plan. They do have a plan. And they even did us a favor of writing it out. Their Project 2025. You hear it? You know? Yeah. They're like really mad that we talk about this all the time. Oh, it's all you guys talk about all the time. Yes, it is what we talk about, because we know, and I said this, as a football coach, I know this, you don't draw up a playbook if you're not going to run the plays. You're going to run the plays, and they're going to run the plays in there. So let me give you a few of these things that's in there. I know you've heard them, but I think it's important to keep focusing on it. They're canceling $65 billion that we got. And in Minnesota, this is transformational. I know it's true in Pennsylvania. They're going to pull back the money for broadband investments that are connecting communities. How many of you are satisfied with your broadband connection as it stands right now? Right. And you don't think in the future that the bandwidth needs are going to get even bigger? So for America to thrive, for you to start a farm, this farm needs to be connected to know commodity prices and trade and all the things, to buy fertilizer, everything else that goes on. Not to mention, if we really want to do telemedicine, which we know that works, you can't transfer data if you don't have the connections to do it. They want to pull those things back. Now, the folks here who farm will get this one. They want to eliminate the agricultural risk and price loss coverage programs, protect farmers from major price drops. Look, we got that through in 14. We got it through in 18. And I just want to be clear about this. when we had leadership in the House of Representatives that could actually get things done rather than sitting around with stupid things that they do all day that don't improve us. They've not passed a farm bill for 2 years. They've not passed the Defense Appropriations Act that pays our soldiers. They've not even passed a damn budget. They do a continuing resolution, and then they want to sit around and complain about everything that they're investigating on that is basically just politicizing every damn thing that gets nothing done for you. So this piece of legislation that we put in, make sure that there's a floor on there so that you don't go bankrupt, and making it harder for you to get FSA loans. These are things for folks that, look, this is policy stuff. Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about this. Look, everyone here knows he doesn't know a damn thing about farm policy. He doesn't know what the FSA is. He doesn't know the risk loss coverage proposal. He doesn't know crop insurance. That's all true. But the people behind him do. And they're the folks that are concerned about one thing: tax cuts for the wealthy at the top, make sure corporations can get bigger. That doesn't help rural America. So look, hindering natural disasters, ending SBA direct lending program, all the things that help farmers rebuild. And we're seeing more and more need for this. We had this year, for the first time in Minnesota, we had a snow emergency that had to be declared. And you're like thinking, don't you get those all the time? Yes, but this year it was a snow emergency because we didn't get any. Businesses who went out of business because we had no snow. We had a shortage of this, and then when we know what happens to groundwater and everything else that happens on this, those are things that we're going to have to be prepared to take to deal with. But this week, as we watched Hurricane Helene and Milton devastate Americans, folks in the Trump administration, when he served, came out and told us that when Donald Trump was president, he would ask them before he would authorize emergency aid, did they vote for me or not? That's disqualifying politically. It's disqualifying as a human being, because these are our neighbors. And not once would they ever ask. Not one. I served with presidents of both parties. And when we were flooding, George Bush was in Minnesota, and he was there to provide us the support we needed to repair what we needed to be done. That's the way this country's supposed to work. I can disagree with George Bush, but he was there to do that. This is the first time in American history you've got a president that is willing to let Americans suffer during a tragedy rather than providing them the aid they need. So look, as a teacher, I'm going to have to tell you this, and I just want to, I'm going to leave you with the final Project 2025. Eliminating the Department of Education. Now, there's an agenda here, and that agenda is to privatize public schools, to give people vouchers, if they will, and then to have you send your kids wherever you want to. Those should certainly be your choices. That should be your choice to do it. But public education has been the great American addition to the world, the ability to be able, not just the great equalizer, the great horizon opener for so many of us. I think about living in a town of 400 people. I had incredible public school teachers. You think if they'd have given my family a voucher, where the hell were we going to find a private school that we could go to in a rural community? And where were they going to find the teachers who would do it for the little money that those public school teachers were doing it for and the effort that they were giving? It goes back to this idea that communities come together. This country invests together. So what Kamala Harris is laying out, what we're talking about doing is, we're talking about investing in those communities. These guys, when they talk about schools, they're talking about banning books in schools. You know what we did in Minnesota? We gave every kid breakfast and lunch for free. We're banishing hunger in those schools. They're concerned about books in schools, but they don't have a damn thing to say about assault weapons in schools with children being shot. So look, Project 2025 wants to send that money elsewhere. Hell, Project 2025 wants to privatize weather forecasting at one time. Think about that. Remember when he took his Sharpie to draw around the hurricane? It's an inconvenient truth that climate change is changing our climate. Well, we don't stick our head in the sand. We fix it, and we get ready for it, and we need a leader who's willing to do that. So look, folks, I went to it in the beginning. We know who Donald Trump is. We know what they stand for. We've got an agenda that works for rural America. And as I told Rick in there, these policies that we're proposing will help the people who are out there with Trump signs in their yard who are going to vote against us. And that's just perfectly fine with me. It's perfectly fine with Kamala Harris. She wants to be a president for all Americans. That is perfectly fine. So we get an opportunity to turn the page on these guys. A new generation of leadership, a new way forward. And I want you to think about this. We got 21 days to make a difference, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 40 years. We got 21 days to do what billions of people around the world could only dream of, determining how we want our country to go and how we want to live. We've got 21 days to protect women's reproductive rights. 21 days to protect our children and do something about gun violence. 21 days to deal with climate change. 21 days to bring manufacturing back to America and make sure we own the future on the new technologies. All of these things are within our grasp. And the bonus on this is, and I'm going to go back to it again, can you imagine how great it's going to be to never have to see him on TV again? To never have to hear it, to never see the division, to never see the just tearing people down, because as Kamala Harris said, this is the thing. Leadership is not by who you can tear down, it's who you can lift up. And leadership is not to pick winners and losers, it's to lift all of us in a way. We got a saying in Minnesota, we all do better when we all do better. It's not that difficult. We also have a saying that says, mind your own damn business on things, which is true too. What we're asking for, and you know it, the party of Reagan would never stand with this guy because what they're asking for. So you've got neighbors, you've got friends, you've got folks out there. On October 21st, last day to register to vote here in Pennsylvania. I would suggest you change that to same-day registration, but that's for the people of Pennsylvania to decide because it's a good damn thing. But get folks registered. You can start early voting on the 22nd, and then we get the opportunity in these next 21 days to take a message out there of a unified country, a president for all of us. And they want to poo-poo this or whatever. I saw the Wall Street Journal said, joyfulness isn't a plan or anything. Well, no one said it was a plan, but it's a hell of a lot better to be joyful than to be angry and terrible like they're doing on the other side. So we are not a hateful country. We are not a divisive country. We care about our neighbors. We lift those up in a time of need, and we know that we are better than they're telling us. He goes across this country and tells us how bad our cities are, how bad places are, how bad states are. He has no solutions because he wants to run on the problems. So here's the deal. 21 days to elect a leader who cares about this country. 21 days to elect someone who is ready to lead and has done it her whole life. 21 days to make the rest of the world say, gosh, dang it, America's back, and they're back in a good way. So for all of you, Rick and the family, thanks for coming out to this farm. Don't believe in every single vote in every single county, in every single precinct counts. This thing is going to be razor close to the end, but I have to tell you, decency, goodness, joy, and hopefulness wins every time. So let's get out there and make it happen. Let's go.